I reached down and I couldn't find my genitals. I couldn't find them. Hello everyone! I am going to be talking about some pretty graphic medical stuff today, so if that's not for you, here's your warning. I had a vaginoplasty surgery, and I think I can safely say I'm pretty much recovered from it now. And because a lot of people end up getting vaginoplasty surgeries, or at least contemplating or considering vaginoplasty surgery, I thought this would be something that I could share my experience about and hopefully kind of give you guys some information that I wish I had known before I got mine, and also just some idea of how it works and what it's like. I'm probably not the best example out there, but I figure the more people are talking about this a little more openly, the better it will be for everybody. I can understand why a lot of people don't talk about vaginoplasty surgery because it's kind of a delicate subject and it concerns a delicate area of the body. But I'm not shy, so I will talk about it. First of all, what is a vaginoplasty surgery? There are two different main types of vaginoplasty surgery. I had a bunch of fun trolling people online because the most popular and well-known type of vaginoplasty at this time is a male to female sex change, where a vagina is constructed out of other tissues. That's not the surgery I had. I've given birth 5 times. I think we all know I'm a gal at this point. I had what is considered a reconstructive surgery. Basically, in the process of giving birth 5 times, and also just going through pregnancy because that's a lot of weight to put on your lower body, the muscles that hold my pelvic organs in, like, you know, that keep them from just falling out, those muscles got torn apart, and in some cases, if I understood correctly, dislocated. Anyway, it created a bunch of gaps where there was no muscular structure to hold my internal organs in, and so my organs started falling out in between my legs, which is the first graphic thing I'm going to describe in this video. So if that makes you a little queasy, you might not want to continue. But yeah, my organs started falling out in between my legs. It was not fun, and it took quite a while for people to realize what was happening to me, and I think it takes a long time for a lot of people to kind of come to the realization that this is happening, because it's just not something that's talked about. Like, before I got pregnant, no one really talked to me about this. My mom has struggled with this. I guess there's a genetic component to it. Nobody said anything to me. I didn't really know this was going to happen. I don't remember anybody talking about this. That's why I'm making this video. Nobody talked to me about this, and so it just sort of hit me out of the blue. And I had a range of symptoms that didn't make any kind of sense, and so I still have a doctor to this day who thinks that I might possibly have celiac disease because I was having all sorts of bowel issues that didn't make any kind of sense. Well, it was because my colon was falling out between my legs. That was why. My colon wasn't where it was supposed to be inside my body, and that was why. That wasn't the only organ that was starting to fall down either. I had some issues with other organs that were falling down. I won't get too graphic with that. Every prolapse is a little bit different. Different people have different kinds of prolapses. I had multiple prolapses, which is just so fun. I was pretty screwed up. Physically, I was screwed up. My quality of life was affected. And so that's why I ended up getting the surgery. I got it because I guess there's like cosmetic, like vulvoplasty, where you can make your, you know, outer lips look youthful and pretty and everything. That's not what I was doing. I was having reconstructive surgery because my junk down there was all kinds of messed up. It was just bad. And it was solely because of, you know, giving birth as many times as I did. I had very healthy, very well-functioning downstairs stuff before I started having kids. And that's how it happens for a lot of women. Some women, it just kind of happens out of the blue. For me, and sometimes it happens to older women. There's a lot of older women who get it. They don't really talk to younger women about it, even after we've given birth, which is kind of crazy to me. First thing I should mention, there is physical therapy. Now, by the time we realized what was happening to me, it had gotten so extreme that my life was pretty severely affected, and it was visibly bulging out of me. So I did go to physical therapy. It did help a little bit, but I was already so far gone at that point. Like, my situation was already pretty extreme. So, yeah. So I had my surgery on Friday, June 27th. You know, I've known my doctor for a very long time. He was there for my very first pregnancy, which was ectopic. So I met him, and almost immediately after meeting him, he told me my baby was going to die. But he was a really, really good doctor. He was very caring. He was very compassionate. He helped me through that journey. And then he was there for the birth of my first, second, third, fourth, and fifth child. He's been a fantastic doctor. And so, you know, I wasn't nervous getting surgery with him. But the really funny thing about this surgery for me, and I've never had anything like this happen before, is I started getting this really bad feeling about it before the surgery, and I don't think that's ever really happened to me with a surgery. I kept getting this kind of feeling that something was not right, that something was going to go wrong, that something bad was going to happen, and I finally looked at it and was like, okay, every once in a while somebody has a bad reaction to the anesthesia and they just die. And I'm starting to get a feeling, like kind of a premonition that something is not right, something is going to go wrong, and that could be it. So I made sure, it was really stupid leading up to the surgery. Like, on the one hand, I was really excited because it was like, I can't wait to be able to poop again like a normal person. I can't wait to regain sexual function because I've lost, you know, a significant amount. Like, most of my sexual function is dead in the water. My husband at one point was complaining that I was being a lot like Eeyore because, like, I was just so miserable, and he was like, you know, you're acting kind of like Eeyore. And I was like, well, yes, this is true, I am. At the same time, if something happened to your penis and you could never get it hard again, wouldn't you be doing the same thing? And he stopped and he thought for a minute. He was like, I have never thought about it that way. I was like, yeah. He's like, I would be completely inconsolable. I was like, yeah. And I mean, that was a good moment for us, because it was like, on the one hand, I really was being like Eeyore, and he was just making a joke and trying to cheer me up, but on the other hand, it hit at a whole new level. Like, I lost sexual function for years because of this. So the surgery, we were gonna do the surgery. I wanted to do the surgery, but I had this really bad gut feeling that I couldn't shake. And so I looked at it, was like, well, you gotta live your life, so let's just keep living and going ahead. I made sure to tell my kids I love them and play a couple extra games with them in the evenings and just spend a little bit more time with them than I would have otherwise. There were times where I was like, I'm tired, I don't want to play with you. And I was like, better play with them just that little extra bit, like, just in case something does go wrong in the surgery. Like, I want them to have as many memories of me as they can before I do this, because I've got a bad feeling about this. And, you know, I hug my husband a lot, and I would tell him I really love you, and we've had a beautiful life together, and I'm very happy with the life that I've had. You know, if something happened and, like, there was a car accident tomorrow, I am so happy with the life that I've had with you. I had a lot of those conversations with him, you know, because I had this really bad feeling and I couldn't shake. And it was stupid, but, you know, it was probably nothing. It was probably nothing. But, you know, because I had a bad feeling, I made sure to, you know, just take those last couple steps so that, you know, in case anything went wrong, you know, just in case, you know, in case I happened to go to sleep and didn't wake up. Now, I have a history of, we'll shorthand this, a history of really messed up things happening to me. And so I have lost a lot of my ability to feel fear in the way that a lot of people feel fear. I still have things I'm afraid of. I still get agitated sometimes, but I don't feel fear the way I think a lot of normal people feel fear. That part just got scrubbed away. And so I went into surgery, and it was just kind of like, okay, here we go. Whatever happens, happens. And I've made my peace with the Lord, so let's do this. And the day of the surgery, I actually felt very confident. We went in. I was feeling well rested. I was feeling pretty good about things. I was like, this is going to be fine. I don't know why I was so worried about. Like, this is going to be fine. We got in, we talked with the doctor beforehand. He was a little irritated. There was an emergency, so they were pushing my surgery back. Like, it was supposed to be in the morning, but something came up, And so my surgery was going to have to get pushed way back, and he was hoping that I would have a little bit more time to recover after the surgery, and I was hoping that I would have plenty of time to recover after the surgery, but it was what it was. So I got the surgery. Everybody was really, really nice. They put me under. It was not a problem. Everything was very easygoing and very relaxed. I felt very relaxed. I felt very easygoing about it. You know, I knew that I felt fine going into the surgery because I was just, you know, it was a normal day for me. I never like having the IV needles. I don't like needles. I will admit. Like, I don't mind tattoos because it feels like a little teeny angry bee is stinging you over and over again. That's not so bad. But when they take a big honking needle and they stick it up inside you, it's just like, I'm not a fan, I gotta say. I can do it. I do it a lot. I've had a lot of kids. You end up with a lot of needles when you have kids. I can do it, but I'm not happy about it. So that was like the part that always bugs me. So they stuck the needle in. It wasn't painful. It's never as bad as you think it's going to be. I chatted with the nurse a bit, and then it was time to wheel me in. And I don't really remember anything after that. I woke up. I felt fine. I was really happy to wake up alive. It was like, okay, cool. I survived the surgery, so there was nothing to be worried about. I'm fine. And they were like, okay, we can't let you leave until you pee. I was like, okay. Like, that's been me with every single childbirth, every surgery, everything. Like, you can't leave until you pee, so okay, fine. So I go to the bathroom, and I can't pee. And I go back and I lie down on the cot for a little while, and they give me some water to drink, and I wait. And it's almost 7 p.m., at which point they're going to have to transfer me from the OR recovery room to my hospital bed, where I'm going to have to spend the night in the hospital, and I don't want to do that because it's going to be expensive, and I mean, this is ridiculous. Like, if they had just given me a little more time to recover instead of pushing my surgery back, I'd be fine. You know, I'd be able to just go home, and I'd like to just go home, because if you spend the night at a hospital, they come in every couple hours, they wake you up, it's unpleasant, it's annoying, you don't actually get any sleep, you don't get any rest, and I really just wanted to go home and get some sleep. So they checked my bladder, and my bladder was dry as a bone because they'd had a catheter in me while I was under, and it had drained out very thoroughly, and so I didn't have any pee to pee. I was like, okay, we're probably going to have to get you a room. They're discharging the last of the other patients, and I'm sitting there like, give me one more chance. And so I go in there, I sit down on the toilet, and I'm just trying as hard as I can to pee. And I got a single drop to come out of me. Just one little drop. I felt it come down. I felt it plop into the toilet. And I was like, that's all I've got. That's all there is in me. So I went back to the nurse. I was like, I got one drop out, and that was it. And he was like, well, you got a drop out, though. That should be good enough. I was like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, that should actually be good enough. So he calls up the doctor. The doctor's like, yeah, I mean, it's amazing she got a dropout. With as empty as she was, she probably can go home. So I was like, sweet, send me home. And so they sent me home. 7 p.m., discharged. Last minute. I was feeling pretty good about that. Well then, 1 a.m. 1 a.m. comes along. I show up at the ER. At 1 a.m. in the morning, my husband had to drive me there. He had to call up some relatives to wake up in the middle of the night to come and watch the kids in the middle of the night so that he could drive me to the emergency room because I couldn't pee. I felt like I should be able to pee. I sat down on the toilet and I relaxed the muscles the way you're supposed to relax the muscles. No pee came out. And I really needed to pee. And I was starting to get a little alarmed because it's like, hey, you know, I've been drinking a bunch of water because I'm trying to stay hydrated after the surgery, and I'm not sure how good it is for my bladder to be expanded this far. So we ended up in the ER, and they put in a catheter and emptied out 600 cc's of urine. For reference, a normal human bladder holds anywhere from 300 to 500 cc's of urine. So mine was full of urine. And I still couldn't pee. And so they sent me home with a catheter, and it was like, okay, that's frustrating. And I probably should have just stayed in the hospital. I screwed up. And I'm sitting there with my husband in the ER, and I'm looking over at him like, I should have listened to you. He's like, you should have listened to me. I was like, I should have listened to you. My bad. I screwed up. So here's the thing I didn't know about vaginoplasty surgery. if you get vaginoplasty surgery, and I did have a cystocele, which is where your bladder is falling into your vaginal cavity. I had a rectocele as well, and my uterus was falling down too. I was a mess. But yeah, when they do that surgery, it is really, really close to your bladder, and there's going to be a lot of swelling. There's going to be a lot of irritation. That's an area that, you know, has a lot of natural blood flow to it. So it's just going to be really swollen for a while, and your urethra can swell shut. And that's what happened to me. So I ended up in the ER. It was not great. It was not a fun time. So that was June 28th at 1 a.m. Surgery was June 27th. Monday, June 30th. We had a morning appointment. We went into the doctor to get the catheter removed because it was like, okay, you know, it's probably healed up by now. These things do happen. Sorry it happened to you, but there you go. I went home and I was able to pee a little bit. It was in little teeny tinkles, but I was able to pee, so clearly I'm capable of peeing now. It's just everything's a little sore, everything's really swollen down there. It's fine. By the next day, I had a lot of pain and burning every single time I peed, and I mean a lot. It was pretty bad. It felt like a UTI. So I called up my GP. I set up an appointment. I have to wait till the next day. It's like, okay, this isn't fun, but it's just a bladder infection. They happen. I had 2 catheters in me by that point, so it made sense that after catheter number 2 got removed, then I start noticing symptoms of a bladder infection. It's just something that happens when you get a catheter, and I had a catheter during the surgery, and then I had a catheter afterwards because I couldn't pee, so this is unfortunate, but this is just part of reality, right? So I just, you know, scheduled the appointment with the general practitioner and just kind of accepted, like, hey, I'm going to be uncomfortable. So I was uncomfortable all of, I've got a calendar here of all this stuff. I was uncomfortable for all of Tuesday. So Friday was the surgery. Monday I got the catheter removed. Tuesday I was just uncomfortable all day long because I have this stupid bladder infection. It's not fun, but you know, you just live with it. I did notice that I was coughing, and every time I coughed it hurt like hell because my bladder didn't feel good. And I just kind of looked at it, was like, it hurt every time I tried to pee. So it was just kind of like, all right, I've just had surgery. My pelvic floor is all stitched up. That gets activated, like those muscles activate when you cough. And so like, I'm just going to really, really try not to cough for the next day or so and just hope that eventually, you know, things are going to settle down a bit and I'm going to be better later. But I can feel like liquid rattling around inside my lungs every time I try to cough. And it's like, well, that's not good. That's not good. I should be able to cough, but it hurts. It hurts, and that is a pain that I do not want to deal with. Wednesday, July 2nd, 2 days after the catheter is removed, I was in absolute agony. I finally got in to see the doctor, the GP, and he gave me antibiotics. They checked my urine. The nurse said it lit up like a Christmas tree. So I clearly had a bladder infection. I got big old UTI. So they gave me some antibiotics for that, and they sent me home. I was in so much pain, and it wasn't, you would think it would be pain from the surgery, because I just had my genitalia sliced open in the front, sliced open in the back, sewn back together. Like, I had stitches going all the way to my butthole. You would think I would have been in pain because of that, and I probably was, but the only thing I really remember was how much pain this bladder infection was giving me. Like, I was terrified to pee. I was afraid to pee. Like, every time I had to pee, like, I would go to the bathroom, I'd sit down, and of course you get frequent urination with a UTI. I'd sit down and be like, you know, squirming and crying on the toilet because it was just so painful. Like, worst UTI I'd ever had, and I was just like, wow, this is really next level. This is something. But I had my medicine. I know it takes a little while to take effect. I've noticed at this point that I am panting like a dog when I breathe, like just panting. And I was thinking that it was because of the pain, because I was in very, very bad pain. And it was really funny because I remember one time I got up at midnight because I was just getting constantly to go to the bathroom. I went to the toilet and I sat down on the toilet, and I kept having these flashes in my head, like these mental images of me like going into an ER and screaming that I needed help, like something was terribly, terribly wrong. And it was so weird. It was like, calm down. It's a bladder infection. You're not going to die. It's okay. But I felt like I was going to die. Like, it was awful. Anyway, again, you know, I'm panting because of the pain. It's fine. I think, yeah, Wednesday was the night that I went to the bathroom, had those mental images, like, oh my God, I have to get to an ER and just beg them to fix me, like, beg them to do something, just do anything, something's horribly wrong. I went back to the couch and I laid down on the couch because I had taken a towel and put it down under my butt on the couch and then used a sheet to cover my body so that everything was modest. That way, you know, I just didn't have to worry about pads or anything touching me down there. It just kind of let everything, you know, just be alone. Just let everything just breathe. Which, when you have a lot of stitches down there, it seemed like a great idea. And honestly, if you can work that around your, you know, I don't know what your situation is, but if you can do that, that's what I did, and it felt really just very nice. It was I was leaning at an angle against a bunch of pillows. It kept pressure off of the surgical area, and it just let it do its thing. But yeah, I remember I was climbing back into the couch and I looked down and my stomach was bulged outward, like just bulging outward. And I looked like I was pregnant. And I just looked at it, was like, I mean, I know that after, because I had vaginoplasty and I also had a laparoscopic, they removed my tubes. And so they went in, and whenever you have laparoscopic surgery, you end up with a little bit of gas and bloating. And so I looked at it, was like, okay, that's a lot of gas and bloating. But that was probably from the laparoscopic surgery that I had. Because since I was already under, they might as well sterilize me because I can't make my body have kids anymore. It's just, I'm too wrecked up. I can't do another pregnancy. So while I was under, I was like, hey, could you sterilize me? So they did. I have 5 kids. I don't need more kids. I'm good. But yeah, that was a little alarming, looking down and seeing, oh, it's starting to rain. I love rain. This is awesome. Okay, I love rain. But anyway, yeah, I just looked at it. It was like, it's swelling. I've got swelling from the laparoscopic surgery. That's why I look like I'm pregnant. I'm panting because I'm in pain. I'm in pain because I have a bladder infection. All of this makes sense. I need to stop freaking out. It's going to be fine. So, Thursday, July 3rd, I had a standard post-operation checkup with my doctor on July 3rd. So I go in at the regular time. My husband drives me because I'm not in a position to drive myself anywhere. My in-laws watch the kids. I'm really grateful they watched the kids as much as they did because this was a little crazy. Like, they watched them for the surgery, but then I had this stupid ER visit afterwards, and so now we're going in for this doctor's appointment. The surgical site looks great. The laparoscopic surgery, I can't really show you, but I had like an incision here, an incision in my belly button, and then an incision right above my pubic bone. Those were all healing up really well. He was very pleased. I seemed like I was doing really well. Everything looked good. He asked how I was doing. I was like, well, the surgery area, the surgical site, you know, it's really not that painful. However, I have used up all of the painkillers you prescribed me because of this bladder infection that I have. Like, it is really bad. And he was like, you know, sorry to hear that. And I was like, a thought crossed my mind. He was like, yeah. And I was like, because I had been, this whole time, I'm still just tinkling every time I need to pee. I was like, I'm not entirely sure that my bladder is emptying completely. And so he's like, well, you know, you're here, I might as well check. So he, you know, lays me back on the table so that he can palpate my abdomen and see where my bladder is and see whether it feels full. And the moment he does that, he looks at my belly and I look pregnant. My belly was just distended. And he's like, yeah, this is all your bladder. Your stomach is distended. You need a catheter. We need to catheterize you. You are not emptying your bladder. And so, because it was an OBGYN office, they didn't keep catheters stocked. He called up some urologists that he knew, but they didn't have any catheters stocked at that time. So the only place to go was back to the ER for another ER visit. ER visit number 2. Wonderful. You know how I was like, I want to go home from the hospital, like on the night of the surgery, because I don't want to cost my family more money by staying in the hospital overnight. I should have done that. That would have been smart. I would have been smart to do that. My husband told me to do that. I'm pretty sure my doctor told me to do that, but I was like still recovering from the anesthesia, so I don't remember. But I should have listened to them, because that would have saved me a second ER visit. My husband drives me to the ER, and like, he drives me to the closest ER. I've never been to these ER before. Like, I've driven my kids to the ER a couple times. This one I've never been to. I arrive, I feel like the dumbest person on earth, because I'm panting like a dog as I like hobble my way up to the front desk, and I'm like, hey, my doctor sent me here because my bladder isn't emptying and it's very, very full. And I felt so stupid, because like, they've got people coming in for like gunshot wounds and stuff, right? And then here I am with my very full bladder, and I'm like, please help me. Please help me. And so, you know, I thought that I was going to have to wait there for like an hour, because you hear about like long ER wait times, but they got me in really fast, which I was so grateful for. And, you know, of course, one of the things the nurses noticed when they got me in was that my bladder was, my stomach was distended. My bladder was so full. It was, you know, definitely a little over the top at that point. Oh no, my door's getting wet. So like, it was definitely kind of an extreme situation at that point. I get chatty when I'm in pain. Some people, I know a lot of people, they talk about what they're like when they're drunk. Like, you know, yeah, I get chatty when I'm drunk, or I get quiet when I'm drunk, or I get mad when I'm drunk. For me, I don't know much about being drunk because I don't drink alcohol, but I totally know a lot about what I'm like when I'm in pain. And when I'm in pain, I get chatty. I talk about the most random shit, and I tell funny stories about all sorts of stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense. The ADHD really comes out in me when I'm in pain. And it makes a lot of sense to me, because everything, like all the additional noise in my head, just quiets down. And also my social inhibitions just kind of evaporate. When I am in extensive amounts of pain, I just don't feel shy anymore. And so I just jabber. Like, I just talk. And so I've also worked in medicine, and so I've had to deal with people who are really, really unpleasant. And so every time I'm dealing with like nurses or medical care providers, I'm always trying really hard to be nice and accommodating to them, because I understand they're doing their job and they're doing the best they can, and they have to work with the equipment that they have, which might not be working as fast as they want it to, or discharge papers that might not be coming up as fast as they want them to, or just any number of little things, you know. There might be an emergency going on in the next room. Somebody might be going into cardiac arrest. They might not be able to get to me as fast as we would all like for them to be able to get to me. So I'm sitting there and I'm chatting with the nurse. And they're getting me onto this cot, like, right away. And they're getting me all set up. And they're putting, I think they put in, I can't remember if they put an IV in me or not at this point. But anyway, they're getting me all set up. And they're asking me all the questions, you know, what are you allergic to? I'm allergic to latex. So you have to always tell people when you're dealing with anyone in medicine, because so much medical equipment is made out of latex. I was like, yep, I'm allergic to latex. They gave me like the little red wristband with the allergy warning. And I'm just chatting with the nurse. And of course, at this point, I'm still panting. I'm panting because I'm in so much pain. And you know how the beds have those railings? I'm like gripping the railing and like just white knuckling that thing. And so I've got this death grip on the railing, and I'm chatting with the nurse. And, you know, she kept on telling me that if it were her, she would be screaming and biting people. Because at this point, it's pretty obvious, like, the reason I look pregnant is because it's all urine that is built up inside my bladder. Please remember, the bladder can only hold 300 to 500 cc's of urine. And I already had 600 in me that first time, so who even knows what I've got in me this time. The nurse was really sweet about it. Like, she was running. She was like, the doctor can't get to you yet. I'm just going to go to him and ask if I can just go ahead and put a catheter in. And so she ran down the hall, asked the doctor. Dr. Green lit it. She ran and grabbed a catheter, stuck it inside of me. Oh, I forgot to mention, at some point she asked me, because I'm still white knuckling the bed, she's like, on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being, you know, very little to no pain, and 10 being the worst pain you've ever experienced, how much pain would you be in? And I'm just sitting there, and he's like, you know, because I'm acting super relaxed, and I've got like super relaxed facial expressions, but I'm still panting really badly, and I'm also like gripping the bed, and I'm like, you know what? I really don't even know anymore. You know, just, I don't know. I mean, I've been in so much pain at that point for so long, and it's been so overwhelming that I don't even know. And I mean, I thought I knew what pain was because when I was giving birth to one of my daughters, I remember there was a bit of a delay with them getting the epidural, and I started having like really rapid contractions. Like I was getting very close to just pushing her right out. And every time I had a contraction, I would lose a lot. I lost all my vision. My vision would completely white out, and then the sound would cut out. So every time I had a contraction, I stopped hearing everything around me, and I stopped seeing everything around me. And then the contraction would stop, and everything would just snap back into place. And so what would happen was I was having these contractions, and they were getting faster and faster and faster. And they were trying to explain to me, I remember it was so funny, they were trying to explain to me the consent for the epidural, which I'd already had one, I knew what it was, but they were trying to explain it to me because they have to tell you before they give you the epidural, and you have to consent. And so the anesthesiologist is telling me about the epidural, and I could only hear him in little spurts because he'd be talking, and then all of a sudden my vision would go white, and I wouldn't hear anything for a little while. And then all of a sudden my vision would snap back into place, and I'd be like, okay, I'm back. What did I miss? And at some point he said something. My vision snapped out. I didn't hear what he said. My vision snapped back into place. I was like, okay, what did he say? And the nurse just looked at me, squeezed my hand, and said, just say, I consent. I was like, I consent! And they stuck the epidural in. So I thought that was pain, because like if it's so bad and so overwhelming that your sensory, like your sensory is just going offline, I figured that is what pain is. Okay, I don't care if the car gets wet. It's getting a little muggy in here. That's what pain is, right? And so when the nurse is talking to me, on a scale to 1 to 10, it's like, well, on the one hand, my vision isn't whiting out and I'm not losing my hearing, so it can't be that bad. But on the other hand, I feel like I'm gonna die. Like, I really feel like I'm gonna die. And I've been dying a few times, and that's what it feels like. It feels like dying. And so I was like, you know what? I really don't even know anymore. Anyway, they get the tube in me. They insert the catheter. And, yeah, she had to drain it out in stages. She couldn't drain it all out at once because there was so much fluid. She didn't want to, like, shock my body. And so she drained part of it out, clamped the catheter, waited for a few minutes, and then reopened the catheter to drain the rest of it because it was really bad. I have a picture here, and I was taking this stuff called Azo that was supposed to help with like UTI pain. Azo will dye your urine bright orange, and so that's why my urine is bright orange in this picture. I was drinking lots of fluids, I was getting plenty of hydration. That probably wasn't helping me very much, actually, considering the fact that I wasn't emptying my bladder when I peed. I was only getting little teeny sprinkles out, but I wasn't like fully emptying my bladder at all. So anyway, when they finally managed to get all of the urine out, it was 2,025 cc's of urine. She measured, I was like 2025, like literally in the year 2025 cc's. She's like, yeah, that's a record for the ER. They were talking about it in the break room. I was like, sweet, okay. And by this point, I'm not shaking with pain anymore, so like I'm still panting a little bit, but I'm pretty much good. And I'm like, well, thank you. I kept thanking her. I was just like, I'm so grateful to not be in that much pain anymore. I was so grateful to have that catheter in. I was just so grateful because I had been in some of the worst pain I had ever experienced in my life. Like, it was mind-blowing amounts of pain, which makes sense. You know, I had about 4 times the higher end of what a bladder should normally carry. It was a lot of urine, and it was stretching out one of my organs pretty darn bad. So that was don't do what I did. Don't do what I did. If you are in excruciating agony, you might want to go to the ER. Don't try to tough it out like I did. If it's that bad, if you think you're dying, you might actually be dying. The next day, Friday, July 4th. Okay, that was an adventure. That was the bad thing. I was worried something bad was going to happen. I had a bad feeling, but it's over now. It's over. I'm okay. Everything's okay. It's okay. I start getting a lot of itching and burning down there in my nether regions. I'm like, okay, why does this catheter keep poking me, and why does it hurt so much? I I couldn't figure it out, and I was like, it's probably nothing. It might be leftovers from the UTI, because I do have a UTI, so, you know, it could be anything, but it keeps getting worse as the day progresses. And so by about noon, I don't want to move. I'm just sitting on the couch trying really hard not to shift my weight at all. I'm trying not to cough. I'm trying not to breathe. It hurts, and I don't know why. And I finally looked down at the catheter, and it was kind of a brownish color. And that looked a little suspicious to me, so I looked up the serial number that was on the catheter. It was a latex catheter. I'm allergic to latex. So, we called up my in-laws again, and my husband drove me back to the emergency room for our third visit. We went to a different emergency room than the one that I had gone to in the last visit, because I didn't want to be upset with anyone in the ER about a very honest mistake that this nurse had made, because she was in a rush to get me a catheter as fast as possible because I was experiencing a genuine medical emergency. So we went to a different ER, but it was really funny looking at the admitting clerk's face when I told her, like the triage nurse, when I told her, yes, I am allergic to latex, and someone put a latex catheter inside of me, and it's inside me right now. Could you please take it out of me, please? The look on their faces, like the way everybody's eyes just got really, really, really wide, was very, very humorous. Anyway, they took me back. They took out the latex catheter. They put in a non-latex catheter. They read the label like twice right in front of me just to be sure, which was really sweet of them. At this point, I'm having a really hard time with coughing. Coughing is becoming a real issue. I'm terrified that I'm going to rip my stitches because I have to cough like more and more and more. And it makes sense because I spent so many days at this point. Like, it's been multiple days that I was doing anything I could not to cough because I had 2,000 cc's of urine like pressing my bladder like crazy. So any kind of cough was excruciatingly painful, but now it's like my bladder's been emptied out and I have to cough, and I have to cough all the time. So I'm trying to be really, really careful about it because I do not want to rip my stitches, because that would be bad. And I tried looking up information about it, and this was something that was very frustrating for me, that if you are a person or know a person who is having a vaginoplasty, getting information online about a reconstructive vaginoplasty is very difficult because everything is geared towards transgender vaginoplasty. I did not have my penis turned into a vagina, so I don't have to worry about a lot of the complications that people encounter when they have a penis surgically turned into a vagina or reconstructed as a vagina. It's not the same thing. I didn't have any donor tissue that was put into my vagina to reconstruct my vagina. I don't have to worry about surgical dehiscence. I don't have to worry about tissue rejection. I mean, it's a very different kind of situation. But I was very worried about ripping my stitches because I was coughing really bad at this point. Finally, on Saturday the 5th, the very next day, I called the doctor's office, and of course it was a weekend, so nobody was really answering the phone, but I was just kind of like, look, I am very worried at this point that I am going to burst my stitches because I have a very bad cough. They told me to take some Robitussin. They're like, you're not going to burst your stitches. It's okay. They're very solid stitches. Just take some cough medicine. Try not to cough, but, you know, if you gotta cough, you gotta cough. Like, that's it. Sunday, July 6th, I get a call from my GP's office. That UTI that I had, it was an antibiotic-resistant UTI. So the antibiotics that I had been taking up to this point hadn't done any good at all. They were going to have to give me a much heavier antibiotic prescription because this particular UTI was a bit of a superbug. And then on top of that, I was having a lot of trouble just with coughing. I was still panting like a dog. Like, I woke up that morning and I was panting like a dog that had been on a run. Like, I was just panting and panting and panting. And finally I told my husband, hey, can you take me to like an urgent care or something? So we drive to the urgent care. It's Sunday, and not only that, it's the 4th of July weekend, so everything is shut down. So the urgent care wasn't open. And we're driving back to the house because I was like, let's just turn around and go home. Yeah, I'm just sick. That's all it is. I just have a cough. It might be bronchitis. You know, it's fine. And my husband is getting annoyed at me because we've been to the ER 3 times now. And he's like, look, do we have to go back to the ER? Because I'd rather you tell me now than at midnight. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is a very bad cough. Like, this is bad. This is very bad. I've had a lot of lung infections before. This is clearly a bad one. If it's affecting me this badly in the morning when I first wake up, you know, they get worse at night. So when nighttime comes around, I am going to be in a world of hurt. I am going to be seriously struggling. I'm struggling right now. I'm going to be struggling more later. Do I have the strength to really handle this? And it's like, well, I'm tough. I'm strong. I can handle this. I can. I'm not going to want to. By the time nightfall comes, I'm going to be exhausted, and I am not going to want to have to deal with this. So I started crying, I think. I think I started crying. Anyway, I started getting really upset. I was like, okay, fine. You're right. My gut is telling me we should go to the ER. I don't want to go to the ER a 4th time, but let's just go to the ER. ER visit number 4. I arrive at the ER. I smile at the guys. They've got security at the door, and so I'm smiling at the guys at security. I'm like, hey, it's me again, visit number 3. Because it was the 3rd time I was at that ER, so this was the 3rd time they'd seen me. Visit number 4 for me to the ER that week. But, yeah, it was just kind of like, hey, it's me again. How you guys doing? So they brought me to, at that point, my husband couldn't get one of the in-laws to watch the kids, so we had all the kids piled into the car. He drove us all the way to the ER. I got out, and I told him to just go ahead and drive the kids back, and then he could come pick me up or whatever. Because, I mean, I knew I was going to be in the ER for a few hours because they make you wait and all that stuff. So they checked me in. They put me in a cot. I felt like such an idiot. I felt like such a stupid idiot, because at this point, like, it's just a cough. I'm in the ER for a freaking cough. This is stupid. But there I am in the ER. And the doctor was really, really nice, and he came in and he asked me what was going on. And by that point, I had started writing down all the things that had happened to me, because I had been to the ER 3 times already, and it was starting to get to be like a lot of information. I had with me at that point an entire grocery bag full of pill bottles that I was taking different various pills for, because I kept on acquiring more and more prescriptions. And so I just put them all into a grocery bag and carted the grocery bag with me into the ER. This isn't the normal vaginoplasty experience, by the way. This is not how it normally is supposed to go. This wasn't supposed to happen. Nobody saw this coming. I am a healthy 38-year-old woman. Like, I'm not that old, and I'm relatively active. I mean, I walk 10,000 steps a day. I'm in decently good shape. Like, this one came out of the blue for everybody. Nobody saw this coming. But anyway, there I am in the ER, and the ER doctor, he sat down, because he had seen some of the notes on me, and, like, he knew that I'd had kind of a rough ride at that point. But I go through all my notes, telling him, okay, we had the surgery this day, I went to the ER this day, I went to the ER again this day, and then the next day I went to the ER again, and so now it's been a few days, so obviously I needed to come back again. And, I mean, I felt really stupid. He was like, we're going to do some blood work, we're going to run some tests, we're going to figure out what you're dealing with. And I thanked him, and I felt really stupid. Like, as I'm sitting in the ER, you know, I've had some really bad medical experiences as a kid. I remember, for me, the really big thing that I remembered, and this is the point where I realized that all those childhood traumas that I thought I'd gotten over, maybe I didn't get over them as much as I thought I did. I was sitting in the ER, and I was remembering being a kid and going to the doctor, like, demanding to go see a doctor. Like, I insisted to my mom, we have to go see a doctor. We have to go see a doctor. We have to go see a doctor. So she threw her hands up. She's like, okay, fine. She took me to a doctor, and I told the doctor, like, I need help. Something very bad is going to happen to me. And the doctor looked at it and said, look, you have bronchitis. It's not fun. I know it's not fun. It was such a condescending speech he gave me. It's like, I know it's not fun, but it's not the end of the world. You're going to be okay. And they sent me right back home. And I think it was like the very next day, I had a major asthma attack because the teachers at my school tried to make me run a mile with bronchitis and asthma. I had a major asthma attack. the attacks were always bad, but I kind of recovered enough to like be able to walk around and kind of zombie my way through the day. That day, I didn't have the strength to zombie my way through the day, so like I think maybe 15-20 minutes after gym class ended, I broke down crying in the middle of class and asked for my teacher to just send me home because I was sick. My dad came and got me. I spent the day in bed. I was crying a lot because I felt like I had just failed everybody and everything, because normally I could get through this on my own, but that time I just couldn't for some reason. And that night I still hadn't recovered, and so at about midnight I went and knocked on my parents' door, and I was like, I'm not okay. And they're like, well, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to take you to the ER? And I was like, yes. And that was my first time going to the ER for an asthma attack. And I ended up lying on a cot in a semi-conscious state. Like, my mom kept me on a cot because they sent me home with a nebulizer for albuterol, and they were giving me albuterol nebulizer every hour on the hour just to keep my lungs functioning. And I was 3 sheets to the wind. I was gone. And I remember I had crazy, crazy dreams because I was half awake and half asleep for 7 days. And then at the end of that 7 days, the doctor said I was okay to go back to school. I went back to school, and right away my teacher looked at me and said, well, if you're healthy enough to go to school, you're healthy enough to run. And they made me run laps again, like right away. I thought I was over all that, but there I was sitting in the ER, and I was thinking about how they weren't going to find anything. They were going to do all these blood work and all these tests, and then they were going to send me home for being an alarmist idiot who had to go to the ER 3 times and suddenly just thinks every single thing that goes wrong is an emergency, and I just need to calm down and I'm going to be okay. And that bad feeling that I have in the pit of my stomach is just me being anxious and overreactive. And I am sitting there talking myself out of ever doing this and feeling like an idiot, because I mean, I arrived and I was panting, and they told me, because there's breathing exercises you can do there, and that helped. And so by the time I'd been sitting there for a while doing these stupid breathing exercises, and the only thing I'm paying any attention to at that point is breathing, I was feeling a lot better. Like, it's gonna be fine. And I think at this point that bad feeling that I had earlier before the surgery was starting to come back, because it was like there was this little part of me that was quietly like, you know, I knew it. I knew this was going to kill me somehow. I knew I was going to die. I knew this was going to be the end of me. I went through all that pain, and now something's going to go wrong. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And so it's like, okay, calm down. You're not going to die. Stop being dramatic. But, you know, that little teeny voice is still whispering, you know, you're going to die. Sooner or later, this thing's going to kill you. It's been whittling you away this whole time. It's been days and days. You are going to die. And it's like, okay, just calm down. So I'm looking at pictures of the kids. I'm concentrating on my breathing, and I'm telling myself, all right, you were overreacting. You're not panting anymore. Your breathing is fine. You're fine. This was a mistake. And you are an idiot for coming into the ER for a stupid cough. And I've never had a CT scan before, but I had a CT scan then. And then I just waited. And I waited and waited and waited. At some point, the nurses came in and asked me if I wanted anything for anxiety, like if I needed any anxiety medication. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, oh, okay, so clearly this was all just a panic attack or something, and it wasn't a big deal. And they probably think I'm just overreacting, and so that's why they're offering me anxiety medications. I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm okay. They're like, okay. And then they left, and I was like, all right, so this was nothing. This was a big nothing burger, and I feel like a complete idiot. And sooner or later, they're going to discharge me. I'm going to go home. I'm going to apologize to everybody for making a big dramatic thing out of it, and life will continue. And I'll feel embarrassed, but that's it. And then the ER doctor walks in, and he looks at me. He's like, well, you have pneumonia in both lungs. And I just stared at him for a second, like, what? And I burst into tears. I just started crying, like, so hard, like I had tears running down my face. I was like, so it wasn't just my imagination. Like, this is real. So I'm not just imagining it. So I'm actually going to get help for this. Like, this thing that I'm fighting right now, I'm actually going to get help for this. And I was crying, and I felt so bad because he was a really nice ER doctor, and I was just bawling, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm reacting, you know, don't mind me. I'm very happy that you found something. So that was embarrassing, but what are you going to do? I had not expected to get help. I had been quietly planning in the back of my head, how am I going to survive the night? Because I have to I have to have strategies in place. I have to have plans in mind. I have to have my albuterol inhaler close by. I have to be ready because tonight I fight monsters. Like, that was my thinking. That was what I kept on thinking, because I was like, they're not going to find anything, but I'm still going to be sick, and I'm going to have to figure out how to survive this shit. And, no, it was pneumonia in both lungs. I had double pneumonia. So, the nurses come back in, and they whip up this drug cocktail. Like, she's got 3 different vials, and she's, like, mixing them all together, and she's, like, using a syringe to do it, and she's squirting one into the other and shaking it back and forth, and then she takes it and sticks it all into the IV, and I'm like, damn, man, like, this is a very fancy cocktail I'm getting right here. And then the doctor came back, and he apologized to me and told me that my blood work looked actually fantastic, and because it was so good, it was hospital policy to send me home, even though I had double pneumonia. And he seemed really apologetic about it, because he initially had been planning on just keeping me at the hospital so they could watch me like a hawk, because so many bad things had happened to me at that point. And I just looked at him, I was like, no, it's fine. It's fine. Like, you guys found the problem. You guys have clearly taken care of it with, like, a monstrous amount of antibiotics. I'm gonna be fine. Like, as long as you guys know what's going on and you guys are treating it and working on it, I'm going to be okay. And so they discharged me and they sent me home. Oh, and while I was at the ER, I did message my child speech therapy office, because I had missed one appointment because I was in the ER. That was when I had the 2,025 cc's of urine in me. I was in the ER and I missed the appointment. And so this time I didn't want to miss the appointment, which was going to be the next day. So I messaged them from the ER like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make the appointment. I'm in the ER right now. I have pneumonia in both lungs. And I figured that would be enough. I was like trying not to miss these appointments. I felt really irresponsible. But at that moment it was like, look, I can't make the appointment. I'm messaging you ahead of time. This should be good. But unfortunately, on Monday, July 7th, I got a call from some lady at their offices. It wasn't the therapist. The therapists were both really, really nice. But the lady at the office, she calls me up and she's talking with me on the phone. She's like, well, you have violated our attendance policy by not giving 48 hours of prior notice. And I'm like, I was in the emergency room. She's like, well, yes, but you have violated our policy. And I was like, I have pneumonia in both lungs. And she's like, well, yes, but you have violated our policy. And our policy is, if you cannot continue attending regularly without giving, 48 hours prior notice. And I was like, I am peeing into a bag. And at that point, my husband came over and he took the phone from me because he realized I wasn't in a place. At that point, my inner Karen was starting to come out. I wasn't in a place where I could talk with this lady reasonably, because she just kept on giving me information about their stupid policy. And I'm like, lady, I had a medical emergency. That's what an ER is for. Like, I had things going on. It's not like I was trying to miss these appointments or just missing them because I casually couldn't be bothered to go. Like, I can't even drive. I didn't expect this to happen. Like, I just had surgery, but I wasn't expecting all these complications, and I certainly wasn't expecting to go to the emergency room 4 times in 1 week. But anyway, yeah. So my husband took over that phone call because he's a much more level-headed person than I am, and I am very grateful for him, because I was a mess. I was back on the couch, lying on a towel with a sheet covering the lower half of my body, just with a catheter in me, because I still couldn't pee. I still had the catheter. Tuesday, July 8th. We're going through this thing day by day. It is a crawl. Like, this was supposed to be a very smooth, very easy recovery. Things did not go according to plan. So we had a follow-up appointment with the OBGYN. It was another follow-up. He looked at the surgical site. It is healing beautifully. Everything is good. They take out the catheter, but they want me to go to a urologist just to be sure. They set up the appointment as soon as possible. So once they take the catheter out, it's kind of like a little mini test. Like, if you can't pee, the good news is you're going to be seeing a urologist in about 2 hours. You're going to be okay. And that was really sweet of them. Like, they made absolutely certain not to let me leave the OBGYN's office until the urologist appointment had been scheduled. So I went and met with the urologist, and by that point I had a very full bladder, and so they put in a new catheter, and it was kind of like, well, you still can't pee, which is unusual. You should be able to pee by now, but you can't. So we're going to leave this catheter in for a week, and after a week we should be able to take it out and you should be good to go. Monday, July 14th, met up with the urologist. He removed the catheter again, and that was it. He was like, okay, catheter is out, you should be good to go. And I'm sitting there like, are you sure about that, doc? He's like, yep, you should be good to go. I'm like, is it okay if I just hang around in the parking lot until I can pee? And he's like, yeah, if you want to do that, you can do that, but you might be waiting for a while. I was like, that's okay. So I immediately drank 5 cups of liquid. I had 1 cup of coffee and I followed that up with 4 cups of water. So 5 cups of liquid total. I was like, that should result in a full bladder, right? I'm an idiot, by the way. You don't need to drink that much to get a full bladder. You really don't. You don't. No, that was not necessary. I am an idiot. Anyway, I waited in the parking lot. They got the catheter out at 10:24. About 11:30, I start feeling like I really, really need to pee. So I go to the bathroom, and I get a couple drops out. Now, I drank 5 cups of water, so I know that I've got more than a couple drops in there. Can't get more than a couple drops out. Also, it burns like hell every time I try. I'm like, okay, that's not good. So I go up to the urologist's office, like, I'm just going to tell them I need that catheter put right back in. They were closing their doors for lunch as I walked up. So I had to wait an hour. 12:30, the moment they open their doors again, I come in, I tell them at the front desk, like, I am starting to get really uncomfortable by this point. I really need a catheter. I went to wait in the waiting room. I couldn't sit down. It was too painful. By that point, I was exhausted. I started crying right there in the waiting room. I have no shame left. I'm exhausted. They bring me into the back, they put in a catheter, and they drain out 800 cc's of urine. So there was a reason I was crying. It was uncomfortable. And I was really tired. So I guess I'm just going to have to wear the catheter for a little while longer. 2 days later, they had me come back into the urologist's office. They wanted to remove the catheter that I had been wearing for the last 2 days and replace it with a self-catheterization system. They have these long, thin tubes that you put in, and the urine goes through the tube and drains out into the toilet. So it's kind of like the most awesome fantasy stand-to-pee device in the world, except for the fact that there is the potential for, higher risk of bladder infection because you're taking an extremely well-lubricated tube and shoving it up into your bladder. They gave me this package of these little tubes. The nurse was really sweet. She sat down with me. We used a mirror, and she told me how to put it in, and I put in this little tube. And I managed to pee with this little tube that you can insert. And it worked out really smoothly. There was no pain or discomfort. And I was like, this is awesome. And they were like, yeah, you can keep doing this, until you are able to pee on your own. And we'll just set you up with this prescription. We'll send in self-catheters. And you can just keep doing this until you're able to pee on your own. And that way you won't really need to go through us as much. And you won't be wearing a catheter bag all the time. I was like, that's awesome. So I went home, and I kind of got the impression that first time I'd used it, I hadn't fully drained my bladder. So I went to the bathroom, and I put another one in, and I drained out my bladder, and it was awesome. It was like, okay, this is nice. I don't have a catheter between my legs. I can walk around like normal. I'm not constantly kind of getting poked by it every time I move. This is great. This is really awesome. So a little while later, and I start drinking coffee because it's like, hey, I don't have to worry about how much I'm drinking. This is awesome. Like, I'm good. I've got this nice new system in place, and it's awesome. After drinking all that coffee, I had to go to the bathroom again. So I go to the bathroom very confidently. I take my little self-catheter tube. I take the little hand mirror that you use to see where you're putting it. I put the little tube and, inserted it. And I've inserted it enough that the urine started coming out. And it was like, okay, this is perfect. Then all of a sudden, I felt this searing pain. And it was like something had squeezed shut inside of me. And I was like, oh, that's not good. So I went to pull the catheter out. And it wouldn't come out. It was stuck. And I was like, oh shit. That's not good. So I'm like kind of twisting it around and trying to get it loose. And all of a sudden it pops loose, which was a huge relief. But obviously no more urine's coming out. And I pull it out of me, and there's blood all over the tip of it. And there's at the very, very tip where the tube opening is, there's this little, like, blob of what looks like torn flesh that had come out from inside of me. And I was like, that's really not good. That's not good. That's very not good. I really hope that doesn't happen again, ever. I don't know what happened there. That was not good. I hope that never happens again. But that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen, right? And so I was a little nervous about it, and I was like, okay, don't get nervous, because then you're just going to tense up your muscles more. It's probably fine. You're going to be fine. I feel like I've done this a lot through the course of this recovery. It's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And I was a little nervous about it, but it's like, you know, sooner or later I'm going to have to pee again, and I'm going to be okay. Now, everything down there was really swollen because that hurt a lot, so I'm just, like, trying to kind of hold off on peeing again until I really, really need to go. But I'm trying to relax, and I'm trying to just think calm thoughts. This is going to be fine. I've already done it twice without that happening, so I just need to not clench my nerves or move while I'm doing it, because that probably helped it clench up. So I've just got to hold very still. I probably didn't put it in far enough. That was what I was thinking at the time. I didn't put it in far enough. So that's what I need to remember. I need to put it in all the way. It's going to be fine. And luckily, the nurse's office called. They were like, hey, how's it going with the self-catheterization? Have you been able to get it in? Have you been able to get urine out? I was like, yes, I have, but the last time I did it, something really weird happened. And I told her about what happened, and she listened to me, and she's like, that is really weird. That should not be happening. And the first question, you know, are you sure you got it in the right hole? I was like, yes, because urine was coming out. It was definitely in the right hole. She was like, okay. It could just be that you have a lot of swelling, and, you know, there were some blood clots in there earlier. Maybe it got a, you know, maybe it sucked onto a blood clot or something and caused some problems. I was like, okay, that makes sense, because I had blood clots in my urine when they took the catheter out, so maybe that was it. This all makes sense. So I get off the phone with the nurse. I'm like, okay, you know, just think calm thoughts. This is going to be fine. That was a fluke. I go back to the bathroom. I put in the catheter. I got some pee out, and then all of a sudden I felt this clenching sensation, and it was like, it hurt so bad. And I'm like, okay, this must have been like another one of those things. And so I'm trying to pull the catheter out. I'm trying to pull it out. It wouldn't move. It was stuck. And so I was like, okay, this is okay. This is fine. This thing is hanging half in and half out of me, but this is fine. And so I'm like trying to shift position, and I'm getting down on the floor, and I'm kind of moving my legs around, trying to open up my hips as much as possible. I'm trying to do everything I can. I'm trying to twist it over to the side a little bit, and maybe twist it in the other direction, trying to like unscrew it, like anything. Just, I got to get this thing out of me. Cannot get it out of me. It hurts constantly. Like there's this constant low level pain, but also every time I touch it, the pain goes bzz. That was not great. So I finally, I leaned out the door and I called my husband. I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. I can't deal with this anymore. It's all been too much. I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I'm crying. My husband is a saint. I'm pretty sure he's a saint. Anyway, he very calmly says, okay, this is what we're going to do. And he goes on Google. He Googles like self-catheter stuck. There's not a lot of information on it, but apparently you can have a bladder spasm sometimes. So this is probably just a bladder spasm. So he's like, okay, we're going to put you in a shower and have warm water running over the area to try and relax the muscles. And I'm going to, you know, have you tried twisting it to the side? I was like, yes. He's like, okay, have you tried doing this? I was like, yes. Have you tried like changing your position? I was like, yes. He's like, okay, well, we're going to get that shower going. And he leaves the room for a second. He comes back with some, I think it was either Tylenol or ibuprofen. I think it was another Motrin. He comes in with a Motrin because that reduces swelling. And so he gives me this stuff to reduce the swelling. I should stay in the shower for a while with the water running over it. And he's like, okay, we're going to need to go to the ER. I was like, yes, we are going to need to go to the ER because I am not putting another one of those things inside me. Like, I'm not doing it. I can't handle this. Like, this is too much. This is way too much on the tail end of everything else that has happened to me. This is not something I feel like I can handle anymore. So he's like, okay. So he calls up the in-law. They say they're on their way. I'm sitting there trying to get this thing out of me, and the in-laws arrive. And it's like, okay, we'll just have to have them remove it at the ER because it's still stuck inside of me. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I'll just ride to the ER with this thing hanging out of me. It's fine. I can do that. And we were about ready to go, and I went to the bathroom one last time. I sat down on the toilet. I took a bunch of really calm breaths, and I twisted it and pulled, and it came out. And it hurt, but it came out, and I pulled it out, and the whole tip of it was just covered in like this dark red blood, and I was just like, okay, it's out. It had been in for approximately 45 minutes. That's how long it took to get the damn thing out. And it was like, well, we're still going to the ER because I am not going to go all night without peeing, and I am not putting another one of those things in ever again if I can help it. So this was ER visit number 5. Gotta love it, man. We show up, and because we called up the nurse's office, like I called her while the thing was stuck inside of me, and she was like, yeah, this has never happened for us. Like, usually people just can use them and it's not a problem. And so they were like, well, our offices are closing any minute now, so you can't come to our offices, so you're just going to have to go to the ER. So they sent us to the ER. We showed up at the ER again. I saw the guards at the door. I was like, hey guys, good seeing y'all again. I get really chatty when I'm in pain. Like, all of the inhibition just goes away. Like, who needs alcohol? All you have to do is just be in excruciating pain, and all that extra noise in your head just goes quiet. It's awesome. They got me into the ER. My husband was with me. My in-laws were watching the kids, but it was getting late, and they needed to come back home because, like, they're getting older. They can't drive at night, so like we needed to get in and get out of that ER this time. Like, we were kind of in a hurry, and it was just inserting a catheter. Like every other ER visit, it was just this, like, they stick in the catheter and then you go, right? This time was a little more complicated. The ER doctor insisted on doing a pelvic exam, which was pretty damn painful because I had stitches all over my insides, and so he's pulling me open and like spreading the lips and everything and looking down there, and I'm like kind of squirming because it hurts. But he wanted to make sure I didn't have an infection, so it's like, okay, you know, whatever. But then they start doing tests. They start doing tests for this. They start doing tests for that. They start doing tests for this other thing. And every single time it was like, can we go home now? They're like, well, we just have to run this one more test. And they're testing for everything under the sun, and it's like, I understand being thorough, but like, we have people watching our 5 small children, and we need to go home. And the only thing we needed when we came in here was a catheter. That's all we needed. The doctor sent us here because we need a catheter. All we need is a catheter. Why so many tests? And it was like hours are ticking by. So I think it was either 2 or 3 hours at which my husband said he was just going to take an Uber home and I could drive myself home, because by that point I was okay to drive. I hadn't been taking pain medications, so I was like, literally, I was safe to drive at that point. So he just took an Uber home, which was really frustrating because then we had to pay for an Uber on top of everything else, and they're still running tests. So anyway, after my husband leaves, this nurse sneaks in, and he takes a bunch of my urine, and as he's taking my urine, he's like, well, this is just for the pregnancy test. I was like, what pregnancy test? He's like, well, we're just going to do a pregnancy test. I was like, I've been surgically sterilized. He was like, well, it's just policy. I was like, I can't have sexual activities. I'm not physically well enough to have sexual activities. I have stitches all over inside of my vagina. My genitals are non-functional. Like, I cannot get pregnant. Like, I can't even do sexual activities. It's like, well, it's just our policy. And he zips out with this bottle of my urine that he stole. And I was ticked at that point. I was like, you've kept me basically imprisoned here for hours now. You put the catheter in within the first few minutes, but you've kept me here for hours. Like, I seriously thought about just sneaking right out of the ER and just being like, what, are you gonna hold me at gunpoint? What are you gonna do? I gotta get out of here. Which is probably what I should have done before they did the stupid urine test, but I was kind of terrified to do anything that would disagree with them, because, like, what if I had to go to the ER again after this? Like I was going in, like, every other day, so, like, I kind of needed to make sure I stayed on their good side. Anyway, the nurse finally comes to discharge me, and I was like, they did a pregnancy test. And she's like, well, yeah, it's policy. I was like, I've been surgically sterilized. I am currently recovering from the surgery in which I was surgically sterilized. I have stitches all over my genitals. Why on earth would they give me a pregnancy test? They confirmed before the surgery that I was not pregnant, and I have not been capable of sexual contact after the surgery, like any sexual contact at all. How could they even justify? What would they need a pregnancy test for? They don't need a pregnancy test to give me a catheter. Why did they do this? She's like, well, you know, usually when I talk to patients, they've had a bad day, so I'm sorry you're having a bad day. I was like, at this point, I haven't had a bad day. I've had a bad month. Why did you do this to me? She's like, well, you know, it's our policy. And she wheels me out and gives me the sign out papers, and then they chuck me out the door. So I drove home, but I was pissed. At that point, I was just pissed. At that point, it felt like insult to injury. And just recently, we got the bill for that. They charged us $50 for that pregnancy test. We are contesting it because I'm still mad. I'm still mad about that. Like, maybe it's just my inner Karen being Karen-y, but what the fuck? Thursday, July 17th, the very next day, they did a scope on my bladder to make sure there was nothing structurally wrong with my bladder. Any surgical equipment that had somehow managed to find its way into my bladder, any stitches that had accidentally stitched my bladder shut, anything that would be causing my bladder to be so uncooperative. Upon doing this, I think it's called an endoscopy. Anyway, upon putting this scope up inside of my bladder, which was a very interesting experience, they had like I guess they were using some sort of water as lubricant because there was like water pouring out of me the whole time. It was interesting. Anyway, they look around, they look at the inside of my bladder, they look at the inside of my urethra, and they found no structural anomalies. Everything was healthy. No strictures, no scars. Everything's good. It is just extremely swollen. It was really funny because the doctor was like, yeah, in the 15 years that I've had this practice, I have never once had a patient who had a self-catheter get stuck inside of them. And they kept on asking me all sorts of questions about it. They're like, we've never had anything like this happen before. Are you sure? You're sure you got in the right hole? I was like, I'm sure. I had pee coming out. It was definitely in the right hole. They were like, that's incredible. We've never had that. I guess I'm just lucky, but that's what happened. Anyway, everything was good, but there was a lot of swelling, so they put another catheter in me. They were like, we're going to give it another week, and then we're going to test it and make absolutely certain that you can pee before we send you home. I was like, that sounds wonderful. Tuesday, July 29th, I'm well into the recovery process by this point, and my period started. Because I'm a girl, and this is part of being a girl. So my period started, I tried putting a pad in. The pad kept rubbing up against the catheter, caused massive amounts of irritation, like just deeply painful irritation. By the next day, July 30th, the irritation was so bad that I was afraid to move. I took the towel back out and I lay back down on the towel because I didn't want to have anything touching it. It was so bad. Thursday, July 31st, I went in, I had the catheter removed. By that point, I still had intense burning and a lot of pain with urination. I assumed that some of it was because just I'd had the catheter removed, because when you have a catheter removed, it causes some burning and irritation. I'd had the catheter in for a month at that point, so, you know, a lot of burning, a lot of irritation. I figured this is kind of normal, but it was getting really, really bad. I used wet compresses on the area to kind of soothe all the burning and the pain. I was taking that azo stuff again for bladder pain. By 6:30 in the evening, I had pain so bad, it was radiating down my right leg. And I was sitting on the couch just crying because it was so overwhelming. I had chills. I couldn't take baths. And so I was like sitting at the edge of the tub and pouring warm water over myself in order to pee. With the warm water pouring over it, it kind of gave me a little bit of relief. I didn't know what to do at that point. I was exhausted. I had been exhausted for quite a while at that point because of all the things that just kept happening. And I had just kept on telling myself, well, this is probably just because, you know, initially I thought that the irritation was the pad for my period rubbing up against the catheter tube and irritating the tubing. But then I thought maybe it was from having the tubing removed and that was where the irritation was coming from. Anyway, that evening, James comes up to me. He's got more Tylenol and more Motrin. He just throws me a handful of pills. I take them. I swallow them. Like, you know, I'm in pain. Eventually, I stopped shivering because I was shivering, like I was shaking. I was in so much pain. And then eventually the pain decreased enough that I was able to fall asleep. Friday, August 1st, I woke up at 5 a.m. to go to the bathroom. I had to pee 4 times just to empty my bladder out, so I was getting a little worried. Am I going to need to have another catheter? Because by that point I was in so much pain, I was like, I do not want another catheter. I don't want to have to go through this again. Anyway, I took more Tylenol, I took more ibuprofen, I took more Azo, which you're probably not supposed to take all three of those together, but I did, and then I went back to bed. At 9:19 in the morning, I noticed that the lymph node on my right leg, where the pain had been like running down my leg from the bladder infection because it was so bad, that lymph node was all swollen, and so there was this big swollen lump sticking out on my lower abdomen where this lymph node was. And that was just because it was so inflamed. It was just really inflamed, and so there was this swollen lump on the side of my abdomen. And at that point, I didn't know for sure if it was just bladder irritation from having the catheter removed or if there was a UTI again. Anyway, Saturday, August 2nd, I peed and my urine was cloudy. So by that point, I knew something was up. I had to wait. Again, this is all my issues keep on happening on the weekend. This was a Saturday again, so I had to wait until Monday to go and see a doctor about my brand new UTI. And so I had to wait for the next 2 days. I was taking tons of Tylenol. I was taking tons of ibuprofen. It's just like, okay, it's a UTI. Just get through the pain. I had to go to the bathroom constantly. I couldn't empty my bladder in one fell swoop, but UTIs do that. If you have a bad enough UTI, you can't pee all in one go. You have to do it in little short visits. But I was very concerned about that because I didn't want to have another, like, ER visit where my abdomen was all swollen because of, urine. So anyway, Monday, August 4th rolls around. They test it, and sure enough, it's a UTI. And they're thinking it's the same antibiotic-resistant strain that I had earlier. It just never fully went away. And so they were like, okay, we're going to have to give you some heavier-duty medication for this one. I was like, great. They were like, we can inject it. I was like, cool. I'm thinking they're going to give me an injection in my arm. Whatever. I can handle that. I'm not thrilled about it because I don't like needles, but whatever. And they're like, yeah, you're going to have to do it 3 times, 1 time per day for the next 3 days. So you're going to have to come in here and we're going to inject you and then you can go home. I was like, great. Okay, that sounds cool. The nurse comes in. She's like, okay, we're going to put it in your butt. I was like, I'm sorry, what? She's like, yeah, we're going to put it in your butt. I was like, you are joking, right? She's like, nope, we're going to put it in your butt. I was like... I'm sorry, I can't do this. And I start crying. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't take anymore. I'm sorry. And they had a pill option, so I was like, please just give me the pill. Like, the pill isn't as desirable. It can have some side effects. I was like, I don't care. Just give me the pill. I can't. I'm sorry you had to measure out the medication and everything. I know you just got it ready. I can't do any more. And I really can't do this 3 days in a row. I can't. I'm sorry. And I felt so stupid because I was just crying and I was trying to explain to her, it's like, I've had so many things happen to me in the last month. I can't handle anymore. Like, the idea of turning around, and it was a big needle, and I asked her, is it going to hurt? She's like, oh yeah, it's a thick one. It's going to hurt. I was like, no, I'm so sorry. I can't do this. I cannot do this. They gave me a prescription. I took the pills instead. I felt like a weenie. I came home and I told my husband that I just lost it at the doctor's office. And he's like, you have had a lot of things happen to you. I was like, yes. He's like, there is no shame in this. I was like, thank you. You're very sweet. The next day, I woke up from a nap because I was sleeping a lot because I was very exhausted because this was a lot. Like, the pain from the bladder infection, just everything. I had been in a lot of pain. I was very tired. And so I woke up and I had a very full bladder. I knew I needed to pee. I went to the bathroom and I tried peeing and I peed only a little bit. And at this point I was just terrified that I was going to end up in the ER a 6th time. And so I thought, you know what? I had 2 good times with the self-insert catheter and 2 bad times. And so I got a 50-50 shot of doing this without anything bad happening. And I would rather take my chances with this than ending up in the ER in a bunch of pain. And so I pulled out one of the catheters. I washed my hands. I sterilized everything. I got everything nice and clean. And I pulled out the catheter and I inserted it. And I got about a cup of liquid out of me before I felt that clenching feeling again. And I just looked at it like, okay, here we go. Both times this has happened, I got it out eventually. I'm going to get it out eventually again. So I very calmly went and I took another Motrin And I started the shower running so that I could run water over the area to try and relax the muscles. And I texted my husband because I thought he was like out at the gym or something. And I was like, he's going to come home and he's going to find me impaled on this damn thing in the bathroom. And I better just text him to give him the heads up. And so I texted him like, hey, guess what I did? It took me about 40 minutes, but eventually, I think it was the warm water. Possibly the Motrin helped, but I think it was the warm water this time that finally did it. Eventually, it twisted out, and once again, it was covered in blood on the tip. It was just very dark blood. It was not pretty. But it was out, and I snapped a picture and sent it to my husband like, problem solved, everything's okay now, everything's good. He's like, are you in pain? I'm like, yeah, but it's all right. It's not inside me anymore, so everything's good. 2 days later, Thursday, August 7th, OBGYN for another follow-up appointment, because I mean, time has been passing with all this craziness. It's been crawling by day, but it has been passing. So I met up with him for a follow-up appointment, and he inspected the surgical area, and it was looking really, really good. And he's like, hey, you know, it's looking good. I wouldn't attempt to have sex just yet. I don't think you're ready for that. You're going to need maybe another week or two. I think he made me wait 2 more weeks. He was like, give it 2 more weeks just to be safe, because I don't want your first time having sex with this to be painful. It seemed very out of place, but he was like, you might want to start exploring the area just with your fingers so that you can get familiar with it. And I'm like, that's weird, but okay. I mean, he wouldn't say that just like, it's not like a dirty old man statement coming from him. Like, if he's telling me this, there's a practical reason that he's telling me this. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, that's really weird. But I've got it written down. 2 more weeks. He's like, 2 more weeks before any kind of penile penetration, but you can use your fingers, your husband can use his fingers. I was like, okay. So I go home. On the drive, I got a call from the doctor's office. The new urine sample that they had sent me had gotten lost on its way to the lab, like lost in transit. So I was like, okay, so we don't know if it was the same UTI, but we gave it a dose of like just a wallop of antibiotics anyway, just because we want to kill that thing. Like, it's like the Rasputin of UTIs. Like, the thing won't die, and so like they want to make sure it was gone. But they did lose my test on the way to the lab, so we think it was the same UTI. We don't know, but it hasn't come back yet. I'm hoping it never comes back. I hope it's gone. I hope it's dead. I hope it's really, really, really dead. That day, I did not feel like doing anything. I didn't feel like exploring anything with anything. Like, I didn't feel like being all adventurous with my fingers. I just went to bed. The next day, I kind of rolled my eyes like I should probably do what the doctor said. He said, explore with your fingers. I should probably explore with my fingers. So here goes nothing. I mean, it was a Friday, so I mean, I figured Friday night, you know, it could be our date night, so I should probably, you know, find out beforehand whether or not I felt comfortable even touching it, but I don't know. It was something, it was on the to-do list. It's like, okay, I've got to figure out what's going on down there anyway. So I lay down in bed when I had a moment alone, sometime around noon, and I reached down, and I couldn't find my genitals. I couldn't find them. I did not know where they were. I mean, obviously I was able to I found the outer lips, I found the clitoris, all that stuff, like all the structures are there, but I couldn't find my vagina. I couldn't find it. I didn't know where it had gone to. And that was weird. Where did it go? And then I realized that for the longest time, I had found it, like when I reached down, because you can't see when you're reaching down. Like if you're a girl, you can't see what's down there. You're just reaching down blindly and hoping that you hit the spot. And you're doing it all by feel and by memory. But the way that I found my vaginal opening for over a year, well over a year at that point, like multiple years, I felt for the bulge where my organs were pushing out of my vagina. And when I touched it, you know, it was kind of wet and warm and, you know, kind of gross, but too much details, I know, but there you go. I felt the bulge of my organs pushing out of my vagina, and that's how I found my vagina. So I reached down in between my legs, and I couldn't find my vagina for a while. I had to finally pull out the mirror and hold the mirror down there and look around and feel around with my fingers, and found my vagina, and it looked like a normal vagina. And it felt like a normal vagina too. Like it felt like normal, and it looked normal, and I had given up years ago on having normal looking genitals. I had been living for years with disfigured genitalia. And I mean, vaginas aren't nearly, I personally think vaginas aren't necessarily pretty. Like, I had always been really happy with mine because, I mean, I worked in a strip club. I saw a lot of, and I always thought mine was really cute, you know, I was happy with it. But then it got torn apart, and it looked bad. For years, it looked really bad. And I thought it was going to be bad looking forever. And I had accepted that, and it's not like you see it unless you're specifically looking at it. Like, unless I'm literally lying on my back, spread eagle with a hand mirror, I'm never going to have to see it. And I had not realized how absolutely demoralizing it was, knowing that everything down there was as disfigured as it was. I hadn't realized how amazing it would be to look down between my legs and see something that didn't look disfigured, to see something that looked normal and healthy. One of the things we talked about before the surgery was that my husband was going to be able to get a lot more sensation because everything was so loose that he couldn't really feel anything in there. And a lot of women, when they get prolapses, they're worried that it's going to affect their partner's sensation. I don't know how much of that was the prolapse so much as the fact that I'd had 5 kids and everything, like all the tissue was just stretched out, the muscles were blown apart, everything was blown wide open, so like it was literally blown out. But I mean, he was like, yeah, your husband's going to be able to get more sensation, and hopefully you will be able to get more sensation as well. He did warn me that if there was nerve damage from giving birth as many times as I had, if it's nerve damage, I can't fix that. But what I can do is I can tighten everything up so that hopefully you can get more sensation as well. That's the goal. And I was like, that would be amazing, because my biggest complaint, yes, I had the bowel issues, and those were not fun, and there were concerns about my bladder, possibly having some issues in the future. The biggest complaint I had was the loss of sexual function. If you have something really delicate like a finger, you can kind of feel where there was a surgery done. But when we're together and we're intimate, he can't feel it, and he can feel an increase in tightness. For me, it was worth it, definitely. Like, having good bowel function. Oh, I haven't even talked about the bowel function. Oh my gosh. Immediately after the surgery, like, I joked with the nurse that I felt like my butthole had been sewed shut, because it kind of had. When I went to the bathroom, of course, I took a lot of stool softeners. I highly recommend anybody getting this surgery take a lot of stool softeners. The first several times I went to the bathroom, every time I pooped, the poop was about this thick. And I kept on looking at it like, oh my gosh, the first time I looked at it, I joked with my husband. I was like, well, the poop is about this thick when it comes out, so I can say goodbye to ever having, butt sex ever again. It's never happening. You'd have to stretch it open way too much. It does eventually return to normal, but immediately after surgery, it was funny because I had these little teeny stringy poops because it was all I could get out. Like, it was very swollen back there. As the month went by, I started returning to normal bowel movements, and then it got kind of exciting because I could sit down on the toilet and actually have just a normal bowel movement, and I hadn't been able to do that in years. I had so many problems with bowel movements, and then, after the surgery, I sat down on the toilet and I had a perfectly normal bowel movement, like a perfectly normal person, and it was like, it was exciting. It was crazy. But I think the even more magical thing was reaching down and not feeling that bulge of organs coming out of me. That was, just looking in a mirror and seeing a very normal looking vagina and feeling with my hand a normal feeling vagina. It was, I know that there's sexual organs, and I know we're talking about sexual organs, but having any part of your body radically disfigured is not fun. And when it's such an intimate part of the body, having it radically disfigured is just very disheartening. And yeah, I'm so grateful that surgery exists, because I feel like I've been made whole again. So yeah, I'm very happy that I had this surgery. I needed it. I clearly needed it. It was impacting my overall quality of life on multiple levels. So, for a surgery that I needed to have happen, it would have been nice if it had gone by smoothly. If you are considering getting this surgery, definitely be aware that you might have trouble urinating afterwards, so definitely keep an eye on your urination afterward. And if you do end up with a catheter, be aware that UTIs are very common with catheters. So, you might get hit with a double whammy, so be aware of it beforehand. Keep an eye out for it beforehand. Don't try to tough it out and be brave. like an idiot like I was. And you'll probably be a lot better off than I was. It'll probably be fine. Most people don't have the issues with the self-catheters that I had. Nobody that I talked to had ever heard of that happening before. I guess I'm lucky. So I wish anyone having the surgery the very best. I know that my experience probably is not exemplary of a typical experience in the sense that most people don't expect to go to the ER 5 times after a surgery like this. I definitely didn't. My doctors definitely didn't expect that to happen. But life threw us a curveball, and at the end it still ended up doing okay. And so, you know, everything's good now. I'm happy I got it. And that's it. I do have some exciting news, like a few different exciting things that are coming up on the horizon that I'm excited about, that I will be telling you guys about in upcoming videos. But right now I don't have enough information to give you guys a clear idea of what we're going to be doing or what's going to be happening. But I will be hopefully giving you guys some good news in the near future. Until then, I hope you all are well, stay in good health, and don't let the UTIs get you. Take care, everyone, and I will talk to y'all later.